Hello, everyone, and welcome to Eris Academy, where you are going to learn how to accept your status as an heir, find your purpose, and to live a fulfilled life. My name is Jasmine. I'm your headmistress here, which just means I'm guiding you along in the process from living a boring, mundane life that you cannot stand to a life that you're completely obsessed with. So, if this is sounding like your vibe, do not forget to hit like, subscribe, and also leave your favorite color heart in the comments. That way, I know that you're here and you're vibing along with me. And today, we're going to be talking about relationships because if the queen is going to rule with someone next to her, he's got to be a king. So, if you're new here, we're currently in our 101 series. The 101 series is here to equip you to feel like an heir of God. Just like princesses and queens and rulers have to go through training in order to step into their power, step on their throne, so do you. So, relationships, romantic relationships, can either be like the coolest, greatest, most fun, most enjoyable, loving, cozy thing, or it can destroy your life. And I personally am tired of seeing these relationships destroy my friends' lives, my family's lives. It's just for women, especially, like romantic relationships have such a pull to the direction that your life will go in. The thing is, we try to play like these relationships aren't actually having a true effect in our lives. Sometimes, especially if you have an avoidant attachment style, you think, okay, whatever I'm doing with my relationship doesn't really matter. That's a side thing. I have watched extremely intelligent, funny, kind, like these beautiful overall people have a romantic relationship, even on like the side, like not as the sole purpose of their life. And I've watched it drain the life from them. That is what a bad relationship can do to you. Now, what is the definition of a bad relationship? At Eris Academy, the definition of a bad relationship is a relationship that is one, unhealthy, or two, one that God told you to leave and to get out of, and you are still staying. So, today we're going to be looking at a couple of different things to make your relationships better. Now, when I say relationships in this category, we are going to put marriage, dating, and situationships all in engagement, all in the same category because a lot of these things are going to be effective through each stage of life. I've been through each stage of everything. I've been through each stage of everything, even with my husband. Been through a situationship, dating, married, engaged. Like I've been through it all, and so I completely understand what it feels like to be in each stage. This is going to make your life so much easier. We're looking for healthy relationships, not perfect relationships. That is very important to note because sometimes it's very easy to get caught up in the internet's expectation of what your relationship should look like. Women, which I love, women now have very extremely high standards, which we should. However, as heirs of God, as Christians, our relationships also require grace. Now, that's going to look like different things in different seasons of your life and different seasons of your relationship. Things that you're going to want to do very, very early on in this process is to decide what your wants are versus what the internet's wants are. We are in extremely like high standard digital time. And honestly, it feels like when people post their relationships on the internet, instead of people posting something and the internet receiving it as, oh, wow, this is just a nice, cool thing. If a woman posts her man on the internet, it seems like a judgment on whether or not that man is worthy enough to be with the woman, whether the treatment that she's getting is good enough. And then a lot of the times the blame gets put on the woman for staying in that relationship. And sometimes the blame gets put on the man for acting crazy. But a lot of the time it just becomes leave him, leave him, leave him, leave him, leave him. And so the internet, when you look at relationships, sometimes can just be like, this is the behavior that you should be following. And if he does this, you should leave him. And if he does this, then you should stay with him. And I don't believe that it is that simple, especially as an heir of God, especially as a Christian. So it's very, very important to look at the internet and think, is this something that the internet decided that's a standard for me, or is this an actual standard for me? Is this a goal for me, or is this something that the internet said should be a goal for me? For example, one of the things that I used to see all the time is men like decorating hotel rooms for their girlfriends. So, like for Valentine's Day, for their birthday, they would get a hotel room and they would put balloons there and flowers and, I'm not too much of a designer person, but they would put like designer bags or a bunch of gifts and they would just have it, or like a giant teddy bear, like that's more my vibe. And they would have it set up in this hotel room that they decorated that would be so cute. And I used to look at this and be like, dang, when is my man gonna decorate a hotel room? The thing is, at a certain point in our relationship, we decided that we were going to be abstinent. So, because of that, I'm not trying to be in a hotel room with my man decorated with balloons and rose petals. Like, I don't need a hotel room for the night with him in that like environment. Even in a proposal, like some of the proposals would be that. And don't get me wrong, I think it's beautiful. But for me, that's not what I was looking for. That's not what was going to work. So I'm looking at this like standard that people put on the internet, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I'm not getting this. And that's not actually something that I even wanted deep down. Another really good example of this is I was on, this was my last straw for Twitter. I was on Twitter scrolling around Valentine's Day and there was a post that was like, if your man is getting you flowers from the grocery store, like he actually doesn't love you. He doesn't care about you. Like he can't go to a florist. He can't get you flowers from anywhere else. And for a second I was like, "Oh my gosh, my man gets me flowers on the grocery store." Like, oh no, what's gonna like, is this a bad relationship? And then I thought, dang, this is stupid. I really enjoy him getting flowers from wherever he's getting them from. When he gets them from the store, like he doesn't just go and like randomly pick them out. He picks them out with thought. Like my favorite color is blue, and yeah, he may have went to a grocery store to go get the flowers, but he looked at all the flowers and we're like, oh, these flowers are blue. Like I'm gonna pick these out for Jazz because she loves blue flowers. And that is really the love and the care that I'm looking for, more so than, oh, he bought me a beautiful bouquet of 100 roses and I don't even like roses. Sometimes the standards that we have set for ourselves are something that someone else placed for us. And it's really, really easy to get those standards from the internet or from our friends, but especially from the internet. Be very careful consuming relationship content and not doing a screen of whether or not you believe that you want that in your own life. Another really good foundation for relationships in general is that, which everyone says, communication is key. Now, we are women, we are feminine energy beings, we are like queens, we're heirs to the throne. We communicate differently than men do. We communicate differently than the world does because we hold ourselves at a different standard. This means that there is going to be a level that is required for you to balance telling and showing. There's a Bible verse that talks about like a gentle and quiet spirit is like so precious to God, and they always use it in terms of your relationship. And sometimes you shouldn't say something, and like men are won over. There's maybe that's two different verses. I'll put them. I'll put them here if I can find them. But men are won over by like your character, not by your words. And how a woman that's like the nagging wife is like a loud, clanging, noisy thing and it's like so horrible to be around. Like these are actual verses from the Bible. So sometimes that gets translated as, okay, well, we should always be silent and we should never say our needs. On the other side of that, once we step kind of into the world and the world's expectations for how we should be acting in relationships, it's like, oh no, you need to tell him. And you need to tell him, especially if he's doing something wrong. And as Black women, if you are a Black woman watching this, we tend to be very, very strict, which I love again, but we tend to be very, very strict in the behavior and the things that we'll allow in our relationships. The thing is, the way that we communicate these things is by saying, it's by telling, it's by talking. And so there's going to be a balance that you're going to need to learn on when to say things and when to bring things up and when to stay silent and to let your character, your actions, and your prayers communicate what they need to your boyfriend, your fiance, your husband, whoever. Another one, for example, I do not believe in long text messages and getting it out after a breakup. That needs to go in your journal. I understand. I also really don't believe in closure. Like, I understand the need and the want and the desire to have closure and to let him know how you're feeling and to just get everything out. You are using so much precious energy and so much precious time on typing out your feelings to a man that does not care. When you're in that state where you're begging and you're pleading and you're trying to get him to understand how much feelings and anger and all of this, you're using all of that time and that energy for a man that you're not even going to be with anymore, especially after a breakup. when that energy can get poured into other things, that energy can get translated into love and get poured into your friendships and your family, and using that text message time to tell them how much you appreciate them, using that frustration to tell God how upset you are, and then suck up that energy. They like internalize the, oh my gosh, like I got to grow to care this much that she's sending this much of a message, and oh, this is crazy, and oh, she must really like me. And he gets a boost from it and you get your energy depleted. It just doesn't, it's not fair. So that's one of the ways where it's like, okay, this may be a showing action. Like this is one of the things where I actually need to just decide, when I say that I'm moving on and that I feel disrespected and that I feel hurt, that action, like if he did something enough to warrant that long of a text message and for you to end things, that action should end in the ending of the relationship. The thing about those long text messages is it usually shows that you still care enough to a point where you will continue the relationship. And so all of those words now mean nothing, because they don't if you don't follow through with them. That's when your character means something, because no, I'm not going to allow you to treat me like this. So I am no longer continuing this line of communication. If this is how things are going to end, this is how things are going to end, and that's going to be what it is. However, on the flip side of that, if this is your partner that you believe, like you've prayed about it, because that's really important, but you've prayed about it and you're like, I feel like God wants me to stay in this relationship, then using that time to communicate is an investment into something that is going to build into your bigger future. So sometimes we stay upset and we're like, well, he should know this and he should understand this. And well, if I'm dating and he does this, like I shouldn't have to explain my standards. Anyone that is worth time is going to take time to learn you. And even in friendships and even in family, like we are like, oh, well, my sister would never treat me this. My mom would never treat me like this. They've known you for years. They've had time to know you for years. But this man that you just met, a couple months ago, a year ago, he hasn't gotten the luxury of being able to spend that much time in your presence yet. So sometimes your teaching is going to be in what you actually say rather than I'm just going to stay silent and stay upset. However, again, the big thing here is just following through with what you say. If there's some type of deal breaker or sometimes it's something that made you genuinely upset and you're like, that cannot happen again or we cannot be together, you have to mean that. Otherwise, it means nothing. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I wanted to talk about so many more things in this video, but I am out of storage. So if you want a part two to this, and if this is something that you're really interested in, let me know and I'll continue to talk about it. Because I had more points, but at the same time, this video is also getting kind of long. I could talk about this forever. So I love relationships. I love a good relationship. So yeah, today, leave in the comments if you actually want a part two, and then we'll continue on in this. And yeah.